All right, welcome back, everybody. I have the privilege to sit down with Orion Rich. He is a combat veteran for the U.S. Army. He started in the American Fire Service in 2011. He's on his 15th year right now. He's worked in pretty much all capacities right now. Started as a volunteer, then paid on call, part-time, and is now a professional fireman. He's currently assigned to a tower ladder on the south side of Chicago. Prior to that, he was assigned to an engine in the same area on the south side of Chicago. Also, for the past 5 years, he's been working part-time as an instructor with NIPSTA Fire Academy, training recruits and other various state certified classes. Lastly, and this is how we got connected, he runs a great Instagram page. It is the Working Truck Company. It covers mostly truck culture, and that's what we're going to sit down. So, my brother, welcome. Did I miss anything in your bio, or is there anything you want to add, sir?
No, that's it. Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And I think that covers more than enough. So
All right,
thanks.
perfect. Well, again,
Yeah.
like we connected over Instagram. We've talked off camera and everything else. You're a truck guy, a ladder guy. I'm a truck guy, ladder guy through and through. So I mean,
hmm
that's what we're going to talk about right now, and that's kind of like a hot topic of the American Fire Service on a couple different modalities that we do. Vertical ventilation is one of them. But before we kind of do a deep dive into it, let's start talking about your Instagram page. So
Sure.
why did why'd you feel the need to start it? Was it just something like, hey man, I'm seeing a lot of cool truck stuff and I want to kind of insert my opinion, or if you mind march it out for the audience why you started the Instagram and then where you kind of see yourself going in the next couple of years with it?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I started the Instagram page basically because, the intention of it was really just to just throw a couple little things out there that I had learned for working on a truck. I feel like where I'm working right now, and there's so many, I work in a great area with a lot of great fire companies around me, and I'm constantly learning something all the time. And a
Mhm.
lot of stuff it's stuff that you don't find in books. It's stuff that you can't read about. It's stuff that you, unless you have a one-on-one experience with somebody where they're showing you hands-on in first person, you just don't see it or you don't get it. So I started it off with just that intention in mind. I was like, well, if there's some things that I could pass along or I could share, this seemed like a good kind of outlet to do that. So once I started it and I started that outlet, I had no intention of it going anywhere. I had no intention of really like a following at all. But all of a sudden, yeah, it's only been up for maybe like 2 or 3 months. But in the past like 2 or 3 months, if people seem to like it, I'm getting a decent following on there. I'm getting some big names reaching out to me and asking me about like what I'm doing with it, or they're saying that it's they like it. It's a lot of stuff that you don't see. So the intention behind it was really just to get some stuff out there, some information, and do that pass along. I think that pass along is like a dying thing in our fire service culture. So the whole intention was to really just jet out some stuff out there. And there's been some stuff too where it's like, they look at it and they're like, maybe not. Maybe this isn't a good idea, or this isn't. And I always say that's okay. If it's not for you, it's not for you. This is just how I do it. This is how I've learned. And it's through real world experience for most of it. You know what I mean? So it's been tried, it's been tested, and it's true. So that's kind of the whole intention behind the page, and that's kind of where it's at right now. I seem to be gaining a decent following every day, and I'm not out for any accolades. I'm not out for monetization, none of that. It's really just about to pass along and getting guys out there the information. That's it. So that's kind of what the page is all about.
Dude, I love it. And we did the same thing with our Fools chapter. And then in this podcast is again, just to share knowledge and things that we've learned and have guys on like you that have different ways of doing things or different outlooks in different parts of the country and just sharing the
hmm
information because like you said, the pass on it's dying in the American Fire Service, unfortunately. And we're seeing it a lot. And I'm curious in the culture in your area, but we're seeing a lot now too, even with our brand new guys. And it's our fault. I say our fault as in senior firemen and suppression officers like us, because what do we tell the probies? It's basically like, hey man, freaking make sure the truck is clean, make sure your stuff's checked off, start the laundry,
Right.
make sure things are clean, everything else. And we tell them all these things. And 95% of them are freaking hard chargers. They're doing it all. They love the American Fire Service. They want to do their time, but we're missing that very initial pass on, like you're talking about in the morning, because we harp on these guys, hey, fucking work, right? But
Right.
how
Right.
about instead when that pass on is going, hey, bro, make a pot of coffee, get yourself a
hmm
cup, make sure everyone's got whatever they need, sit down, shut up, and then just listen to the boys talk about what they ran on yesterday and stuff like that. And I believe, at
100%.
least in our area, we're doing a poor job at that. And again,
Sure.
that's our fault. So I'm curious on you guys how that works.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you 100%. I actually did a write up on this on the page about the pass along. I see it so many times. Guys in the morning they'll bitch and they'll be like, "Oh, this didn't happen or that didn't happen," and it's like well, don't you guys have a candidate or a probie? It's like, well, yeah, but I don't blame the probie or the candidate. I'll look to the guys and I'll be like, hey, like, what you guys do with him yesterday? Or hey, what are you guys doing to make sure that this happens or this doesn't happen? But that pass along, I see guys too. You know, it's like the morning we have that coffee. Our shift change happens at like unofficially at like 6 a.m. So, and then our roll call starts at 8. So everybody's kind of there bustling around the firehouse. So typically what we'll do is, I work at a pretty good firehouse. So most guys, they'll sit down, they'll have a cup of coffee, 6 a.m. Everybody starts kind of moving around and we'll sit down, we'll have a cup of coffee and we'll just jag each other off, you know, for a few hours and, or for a few minutes and kind of what'd you do yesterday, this, that, whatever, you know, we'll talk shit to each other and do the fire service thing, you know?
I love it.
Yeah. But, there's some guys that don't, you know, and I get it. If you got a job or you got to be so, you know, you got kids, you got to get them to school. That is what it is, you know, but I think we could do a better job, even if it's for 10 minutes. If that means you wake up 10 minutes earlier before you got to jet out, wake up 10 minutes earlier, have a cup of coffee with the guys, you know, talk a little bit of shit and then head out. I think it says a lot about a firehouse. If you go to a firehouse, we take details sometimes, you know, we go to a firehouse and you get to one of those companies where like there's zero camaraderie, there's zero anything. And it's just everybody passes each other like strangers in the night. There's no conversation. And then it's the next shift. And you're like, you know, I think you miss out on a lot. So that's kind of like where our culture is with the pass along in the morning. You know, I think we could certainly do a better job at it 100%.
Yeah. I think that's probably across the nation right now. And it's, you know, times have changed. COVID kind of fucked everything up for the American Fire Service for a minute because everyone's kind of on edge. I don't know how about you guys, but it threw a wrench in our system for a little bit. But yeah, dude, I love the fact that you guys are doing that. And it's funny because I got an episode with the battalion chief from the Baltimore region. And their department decided to make a big change, and it was a positive change. It was one of those things along the lines where they were encouraging more station pride. So when it came down to either tattooing the trucks, you know, with their fire department, their shirts and everything else, but he makes a valid point. Like when you start doing stuff like that, now you have the guys that are hanging around for the pass on a little bit more. You have those, you build those stronger houses, you know, and then the stronger the house, man, the better firemen you're going to have, the better customer 100%. Service. Yeah. Everything across the line. It's a great trickle down effect. And hopefully that the chiefs that listen to this or whatever understand that, or maybe re-engage and understand that is very important to have station pride and be able to let the guys razz each other up a little bit.
Yeah,
and it's not,
absolutely.
It's not fucking hazing. You know, there's like, it stays within our four walls. Don't put it on Instagram and everything should be okay. Like, step back a little bit, let the boys be boys, right? Let us decompress the way we need to and go from there. But hey, we're going way off right now. So I'll try to refocus you. I'll refocus myself here on some truck culture. So again, we're talking about truck culture. So let's start with probably, the two dirtiest, tactics, I'll say, in the American Fire Service right now, or at least the ones that have the most traction, between research, internet, everything else. So we'll start with vertical ventilation. So, we in our region, we cut a lot. Thank God. And we do coordinated, ventilation. So we do make sure we have hand lines in service prior to cutting. We always obviously try to cut above the seat of the fire, everything else. But there's a lot of departments out there right now that just say period Z. No, you will not vertically ventilate ever, or it has to, you know, I don't even know how to word it, but the command officer has to feel like it's extremely justified to do that. So in your region, how is vertical ventilation? Is that a dirty word, or is that something you guys have been like gangbusters from day one about?
Yeah. So if you're speaking regionally, like our region specifically, it's kind of all over the place, to be honest with you. A lot of it depends on manpower in the region. I would say for where I work, it's very aggressive. The guys are going to the roof. There's always a dedicated roof company. There's always a dedicated, you know, the first truck has 2 guys go up to the roof. The second truck sends either an additional guy or 2 additional guys to the roof right off the bat. And that's every single time. Flat roof, peak roof, it doesn't matter. We're going to the roof. Even if that means we're not cutting on the roof, we're at least getting up to the roof and we're doing some sort of recon and we're radioing back and telling them what we see. But I would say 9 times out of 10, as long as it's not a total loss, we're going to the roof and we're cutting. You know, but you said before, like teaching in the NIPSA Academy, I get to see everybody from the region. And I have a lot of conversation with these guys, especially candidates, you know, and then I kind of pride myself on the vertical ventilation because I'm typically our chauffeurs, for example, on the tower ladder or on a truck, we go to the roof. That's our like appointed position. We spot the rig, we take the saw, we go up with our partner and we cut. So I have a lot of passion in doing that. But when I talk to some of these other departments outside, it's either 1, they're not going, 2, it's going to be like a situational dependent, kind of like what you said, or they have SOPs in place that just say, no, we don't do that. We go only do horizontal ventilation. When I worked in the suburbs too, in an area, a couple different areas where it was vertical ventilation wasn't a priority. We had always looked at the city, at least I had always looked at the city like, well, these big cities, these bigger areas that see a lot of fire duty, these guys are going to the roof, and it's not by happenstance. You know what I mean? These guys are going to the roof because it makes sense. You know, we can go through all the studies and talk about, you know, UL and NIST, all that stuff. But when it comes down to it, heat and smoke, it goes up, and it only makes things better for people that are inside, for us, for the victims, for possible civilians. So it always just made sense to me. But regionally, if we're looking at it by that, it's not strong in the region. For where I work, it's definitely strong. I mean, like Chicago's got a lot of pride and tradition in going to the roof, so much so that sometimes we won't let other people up our main until we get up our main first. So it's a whole different culture thing. But as I've been teaching throughout the fire academy in the past 5 years, I've talked to these candidates, and even if their departments don't go to the roof, I'll still preach and I'll still tell them like, hey, this is why, and this is how you do it. And if you do find yourself on a roof, this is how and why we do it like this. And so when they do go to that out of town fire, they go on a mutual aid or something like that, they have at least a little bit of knowledge and skill set. And I don't think it's necessarily like a dying thing, vertical ventilation. I think it's just a matter of showing and having some experience in it and being able to talk to those chiefs or to whoever it is that's saying we can't do that or we don't do that, and giving them like real facts and evidence based off of experience rather than just studies that are telling them that they can't. You know what I mean?
No, absolutely. And I love what you said, and hopefully guys picked up on it, but you say when you're teaching, you explain even to the guys in departments that maybe have those SOPs that say, hey, we don't, sorry, you still explain what you said, the why, which is so fucking important, because that that guy or girl or whatever that's got hired in that smaller department or that different region, it doesn't mean 5 years from now they're not with your department, right?
Sure.
Or another larger department somewhere maybe outside of your region that does. And at least because of a guy like you, they at least have a base knowledge of, hey, this is why we do it. This is the steps. Maybe I haven't been trained or have done it yet, but at least I understand the why. Then now I can kind of get the buy-in and actually do it. But yeah, I love what you said. Like, I'm a huge component, and we are as Fools members out here, of not eliminating any tactic or any modality that we have. I would rather, and we say it all the time, I rather train guys 50 different ways to do one thing and then empower them to choose one of those 50 in that moment, because they're the only guys that know exactly what's needed at that point, because they're the only ones there. You know, they're physically doing the task. As long as they have the knowledge base, because the guys like you that taught them the why, they should be able to execute it without that micromanaging coming on top of them. So, dude, I love what you guys are doing. I like that culture, but I did hear you say one thing, real quick question for you.
Sure.
So you send 2 guys to the roof. So do you have a 4-man truck company, and do you guys always split, or typically is that like 2 guys? Is that like a 2-man outside crew, then 2-man inside crew? How's that work?
Yeah, so we're definitely blessed with staffing. We have 5-man trucks and 5-man engines. So it's amazing. It's amazing. I know. But they do run us at variances. They kind of spread them out throughout the city. So you might be running 4, and that, so 5 includes the driver, the officer, a roof seat guy, an entry guy, and then somebody assigned to search, which is usually with the officer. So when we're fully staffed, yeah, 100%, that's exactly what we do. We split up. And I would say just about every truck company does that, depending on the type of dwelling that we're going to. If your first truck, if you want to get into that a little bit.
Yeah, please.
If your first truck, it's the driver and the roof seat guy. Those guys partner up, and then they're partners for pretty much throughout the fire. You go up, you make your hole, you do what you got to do, you come down, excuse me. And then when you come down, you kind of link back up with your truck company and do your overhaul and your work that you got to get done. The entry guy, that depends. And that's kind of situational and area dependent on your officer. And then, of course, who that entry guy is. If it's a candidate, we're not going to send him off by himself. He's kind of works like FDNY does, kind of like an OV guy. So what he'll do is he'll go around to the rear. If it's like a single family dwelling or like a 2-flat, 3-flat, he'll go around to the rear. He'll check the basement, see if fire's in the basement, check the utilities, kind of get almost like a 360 of the building and soften it up a little bit. And then the officer and then the search guy, they'll link up and go together, and they'll start off on a primary search. So that's your right off the bat first truck. The second truck, we're kind of hitting us on some of the same things. The first truck driver, or the driver of the second truck, he's going to go up to the roof and assist with the first truck. So now we got 3 guys on the roof. Depending on where we're at, where I work, there's a lot of flat roofs. We deal with a lot of courtyard buildings, a lot of 2, 3 flats, things like that. So sometimes we'll send up the roof man as well. So now you got 4 guys on the roof. And then the 3 other guys, they'll link up and then they'll throw a ladder for egress on the rear of the building towards the rear. A lot of times you got back porches. So just throw it as far back as they can, maybe towards like the B, C side or the D, C side. So we got multiple means of egress off the roof. And then they'll go in and they'll assist with search or entry or whatever the task is that needs to be done, depending on the size of the building, where the fire's at, all that stuff. So that's kind of like our first and second truck layout. That's kind of the task and things that we need to accomplish. One of the things, I know I said we're blessed with manpower. We got 5 guys on a truck coming, which is fantastic. But I tell the same guys that if you don't have the manpower, if you don't have 5 guys coming on a truck, there's still tasks that need to be done that we're just accomplishing because we have the manpower. But that just means you got to do more with less. So I'll hear some departments when I'll talk to them, they'll be like, oh, we don't have that kind of manpower. We can't do that. Mm-hmm. And I'll say to them, well, you absolutely have to. Like, if you're going to go to the roof, you need that second means of egress. It's almost like a non-negotiable. If we're going, we got to check the utilities. We got to check the rear. We got to look at the basement. It's just all these things that we're able to accomplish better, or I wouldn't say better. We're able to accomplish quicker and more efficiently because we have all these guys to do it. But the tasks still remain the same. So that's kind of where we're at with our manning and when it goes to fires and how we set up when we get there.
So for the guys that don't split, what is your opinion? What's the advantage of splitting most of the time?
Sure. I've been asked this question a bunch of times, actually, especially on the Instagram page. What's my opinion on it? And my opinion is if we have the manpower to do it, 100%, let's split. If we can cover more ground, it's like gaining a tactical advantage on the fire and the fire ground. You know what I mean? If we're a 5-man crew and we're just huddled up and we're like, all right, we all got to stick together. We can't cover the ground that you could if you split up. If you got, again, it comes down to your personnel though. If I got a truck full of candidates or probies, you got to know your players, right? I'm not going to be like, oh, all you new guys just, go split up with each other and figure it out. It's more, okay, I got these players today. This is I know what we can accomplish. I know what we can do. So that plays a huge role. And that might mean you split up with a senior guy that goes with the junior guy. You know what I mean? It doesn't necessarily have to be the officer. I'm in the opinion of we split, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's one guy is on his own off doing John Wayne stuff. You know what I mean? Right. That means we're the 2 in 2 out thing. We try and follow that as best as possible when we can. So that's kind of my opinion. What's your opinion? You guys do the same thing?
No. See, and it's funny because I just had the boys from Memphis on from Ladder 5. They had a Mayday. They fell through the roof. They do identical to what you guys do, except for they have a 4-man ladder company. That's what we have out here is 4-man ladder company. We do 4-man engine, 4-man ladders, which a lot of guys think that we're blessed. And you said 5. And I'm like, holy cow. Like,
hey, 4 is great too.
Because it's funny, like I'll go off on a tangent real quick. When it came out here, I was a fireman in the Baltimore region for about 11 years prior to moving out here for my ex-wife. And then it was funny because we ran 3-man ladders, 3-man engines. Some at that point, some engines, depending on where in the area was, might have been an engineer and a fireman, and that's it, just 2 dudes. So I remember when I got here, I'm like, there's 4 dudes, and I'm like, I'm not even know what to do with myself. I'm like, there's so much help. I couldn't imagine 5 guys. It would just be like, well, I can. The burgers are amazing, but on a truck, I have no fucking idea. but no, it's funny. So Memphis splits, we don't. So we'll send 3 guys to the roof. Like I said, our primary as a first in ladder company is going to be going to the roof, getting that roof report like you're talking about. And then if we need to ventilate, we're absolutely going to ventilate, which we do more times than not. But it's one of those things where it would be great that we could split. We'd say, and I'm curious on how you guys do it. So Memphis, what they do is the chauffeur, their engineer, being the senior fireman, if you want to put them that way. And then the junior backstep guy or a backstep guy, they go to the roof together. So that chauffeur is the officer in charge for that crew. And then the lieutenant or the captain and the other backstep guy, they're the inside crew. And I'm like, dude, it's perfect because you have accountability on both. And to me, it's just like the multifaceted being able, hey, I can get guys on the roof, give me a roof report and prepare to ventilate ASAP. And then I have 2 dudes with the can that can go ahead and start coaching the engine company in. I'm like, I love it. Right. So
yeah, that's perfect.
And the fact that you guys do it too. So it's opening my eyes to different tactics that I've never been exposed to. I love what you guys do, the splitting. I mean, maybe we'll get there one day. And I don't think anyone's even mentioned that before because typically our odd man out is the engineer. And they are working. I mean, they're typically throwing that secondary means of egress on the opposite side of the roof, or at least
Yep.
in close proximity where we could bail out, right? And they're kind of like the overall safety officer, while myself and then the two backstep guys are actually on the roof ventilating. So they're
Hmm.
just kind of standing back and watching. But you're
Hmm.
thinking, like, it's funny because we have a couple ladder companies that are guys like, so I'm not a small guy, but I'm definitely not the biggest ladder guy out there. I'm like 220 pounds, but there was a truck crew at one point that the officer, the engineer, and both backstep guys, they were all north of 250, 275, but just,
Yeah. Just
I mean,
monsters,
they're
right? Yeah.
monsters, and then
Yeah.
put gear on them. And I'm like, man, I'll tell you what, if a roof can hold that company, it can hold anything.
Yeah.
But
Right.
at the same time, we're like, why are we putting 1,000 pounds on a roof if we didn't have to? But
Right.
it's a safety thing, right? Where
Sure.
I always preach all the time, if we can move faster, be more aggressive, and get our job done quicker, we're actually being safer because we're accomplishing that goal rapidly and then getting off the roof and then being able to do something else. So again, my personal
Agreed.
opinion, if we did what you guys did and split, I think,
Hmm.
or I think across the nation, if people did that, it would be a safer roof operation. But again, that's
Yeah.
again my one dude's personal opinion. That's all.
Yeah. I agree.
All right, so vertical ventilation. I love the fact that you guys do it. Right, we're here. This is for the non-truckies. I'm sorry, shit out of luck. This is all it's going to be
Yeah.
today. So,
That's all
but
right.
so let's talk about the other dirty words. So VES, VEIS, targeted search. All three are the same freaking thing, depending on what part of the country you are, how they're trying to rebrand it, everything else. So it is finally becoming a more accepted tactic across the United States, where for a period of time, I felt like a lot of departments or a lot of areas either abandoned it or never adopted it because it was deemed to be either reckless or unsafe or whatever. I'm not quite sure why different departments said absolutely not. We don't agree with this tactic. So we are currently training guys on doing VIS. We out here call it targeted search. It's not an adopted modality yet. It's being worked on, but it's being trained on and everything else. So
Hmm.
it's in the process. But when I first relocated out here, that was one of my first questions. I said, do we search through windows? And
Sure.
the looks I got were like, I had five heads. They're like,
Yeah.
what do you mean? That is
Hmm.
dangerous. And I'm like, how is that dangerous? It's actually one of the safest methods
Yeah.
I know of. And then I would preempt them and say, come back next shift. Tell me how many line of duty deaths you found out from a VEIS, because I already
Sure.
know the answer. It's a goose egg. There's
Okay.
zero. Because instead of going through the front door or up an exterior stairwell or up an interior stairwell, whatever the case might be, through all the bullshit, all the fucking hot shit, the hoarding situations, everything else, to try to find that bedroom where we believe someone's located because we know they're typically in bedrooms, especially after COVID. Or
Sure.
I could throw a fucking ladder, get into the window, make a grab, get out, and then leapfrog to another window or extend from the hallway if I need to. How is that freaking reckless? It's like
Sure.
amazing. Like it was mind boggling to me. So thank God our culture over here is now getting way more aggressive with the truck culture. Thank God. So I'm
Uh-huh.
curious. So what do you guys do? Do you search through windows? Do you search with cans? Do you search ahead of ozons? Just march out for your region as a whole. So your department and then that whole region, if you don't mind, because I'm sure it's different.
Yeah.
How, especially with you teaching, how does that kind of work in your region, brother?
Yeah. So regional, and I would say that we got a pretty good search culture regionally.
Mm.
Even in the academy, we're teaching the candidates to vendor search. I do like you said targeted search. I think that's a great way to put it. It's exactly what you're doing. You're
Mm-hmm.
looking for the areas that there could possibly be somebody. You're targeting that, and then you're going after that. And I love
Yep.
that. That's a great way to put it. But vendor search, and I know guys always throw out too, like vendor isolate search, vendor search. Why are we throwing the I in there? Why are we
Mm-hmm.
doing this or that? I've heard that argument, and I've heard all these things. But the idea, I think, still remains the same. So it is, in my opinion, and it is in, I think, the region for the most part, vendor search is definitely a thing. You know what I mean? I don't see there's any reason why we can't do that. I would make the same argument going kind of back to the roof operations. Guys will say like, well, we're not putting people on roofs because it's too dangerous, right? Well, but we'll send every company inside through the front door into the fire. Like, what are we doing? If it's the same thing, like, how are you going to say it's less dangerous doing that than it is doing being on the roof? I would say the same thing applies to vendor search or targeted search. Why are we saying that we can't go into an area that's not burned yet, but we'll send guys straight through the door into an area that is burned? To me, it doesn't make sense that we would be able to do one and not the other. So vendor search, I think, is definitely a thing in our area. Always every candidate class, every recruit that comes through, we tell them that this is how we do it, and we kind of try and show them, or I try and show them how we do it and how I was taught. But when we're going in through a veteran search, I think one of the biggest things I see, and I'll just kind of hit on this real quick. I see a lot of guys they'll dive head first through the window, and if that's what some guys do, that's great. But I'm in the mindset, if the window's big enough and I can straddle the windowsill and I can kind of like crab my way in, that's how I do it. I've seen too many times guys are going headfirst into a window. And if you sounded the floor, that's one thing, right? Before we go in and we make a vendor search, we got to sound the floor. And we're just checking to make sure that there's a floor there, you know. But once you go head first, that's it. You're committed. There's no out. And I've tried to tell guys too. I was like, hey, what happens if you go in and that door is open? You got smoke coming out of that room, and all of a sudden it flashes on you, and you got to turn around. I said, you just went in opposite of the window. If that room all of a sudden takes off on you, you need to do a 180 to get out. It might feel like you're doing a 900. You might be spinning in circles thinking that the window's right behind you. And next thing you know, you're disoriented, because when you're on fire and when you're hot and when it's all of a sudden it's time to get out, a lot of guys say they're not going to panic, but if you've ever been in an area where you've been flashed over, panic sets in real quick, and then you're going to revert right back to your training. Hopefully you'll be able to just turn around and make it right out the window. But I always taught, if the window's big enough, which most of our windows are, unless you're going out into like a Denver style window where it's super narrow, we straddle the windowsill. We stay low. We get in the windowsill, and then we kind of crab our way in with our foot. We set our tool, we sound the floor, we do the whole thing, and then in we go. If all of a sudden the room takes off on me, all it is a transition back out off the windowsill onto the ladder. And then isolating the room, a lot of times where I work, the door's almost always adjacent of where the window's at. So we try and teach to wherever the window's at, try and catch that door as soon as you can, and then that'll isolate, and then now we can get our search done as soon as possible. So that's kind of my opinion and thought on vendor search. I heard you mention searching ahead of hose lines. Again, in my region, I would say most say that we are not going to search ahead of hose lines. They're going to say we have to have that hose in place first, which makes sense. There's an argument for that, I think. However, how we do it, I think, is a lot different. I think when you're an aggressive truck, you almost love it when the line doesn't make it ahead of you first. You're like, great, they're not fucking up this whole room and making everything, the visibility goes zero dark, and then all of a sudden you got nothing. If I can get ahead, we'll do that. We'll get ahead, recon, find out where the fire's at, get the searches done along the way, and then a lot of times what we'll end up doing is we'll lead the engine right in where they need to be. Especially if we got like a 4+1 or we got a courtyard building or something like that, you almost need the truck to go ahead. If you're talking about your 1.5-story frame or something like that, the engine can pretty much make that no problem. But I see a lot of times the truck is going ahead. The truck is ahead of the line, and it is a little bit situational dependent. But I don't see a problem with it. Most of the time you're searching on the truck anyways. You're doing it without a hose line. You know, the engine, they just follow the hose line out when they got to get out. For the truck, and as you know, when we search, the only way that we find our way out is the way we found our way back in. Until the line gets in place, you know, we can follow a line out, but until then, it's really just all about our skills and if we counted our turns or if we know what floor we're on, that's how we orient ourselves as truck guys. That's my opinion on searching ahead of the hose line. I think it can be done, and I think we do it a lot. And I don't think it's a negative thing at all. I think it actually can be positive, especially if we're searching for victims. I think one of the bigger things also is I see these, as soon as the engine puts water on the fire, what does it do? It messes up the environment, kind of like what we were saying. But I know there's like, you can't push fire and everything, but you can certainly push the what's left over after you hit the fire. If water is expanding at 1,700 parts per million, you're basically creating like a steam roaster in that entire building. And if we do that before we can get our search fully completed, we might have a room that's next to a room that's on fire, and we just messed up that whole environment for that next room over. So getting ahead of the line, for me, it makes sense. We do it. I like to do it. And I have a strong position on that. I think if you can do it and you have the capabilities, let's go.
And so two questions on that. And again, I'm just asking your personal opinion. So
absolutely.
Let's start with the VEIS. What's your opinion on the I? Because you said, hey, you teach, we're going to isolate that room. So I'm assuming that you're an I guy. And I'm curious, especially with your Instagram, because you've said you've been asked this a bunch, and explain to me, because this is just a wholehearted question. Why are guys against the I? Because to me, I'm going to do the I no matter what, because that's right. Again, how I teach it. I tell them, listen, fireman number one that go transverses through that window first, your only job is, I don't even care if you come across a victim, call it out, but continue to find that door and close the room because we have to buy ourselves some time. And at that point, then we can dirty drag, package, whatever that scenario might be. But all I'm telling is my partner to, hey, come in, I'm going to need some help. I'm going past that victim to close that door and then circle back around. So for you, or in your opinion, what's the issue with the I in VEIS or VES?
Yeah, that's a great question. I honestly think it's just because firemen hate fucking acronyms. They're just like, oh fuck, you give me another
Letter?
letter. Yeah, they're
Mm.
like, give me another letter, and now the acronym's even bigger.
Okay.
So, but honestly, like you just said, if the isolate is already, we know that's what we're gonna do, right? We're gonna
Mm-hmm.
get into that vendor search, and we're gonna isolate the room as soon as we can. I mean, I don't see a problem with it. I honestly think it's just that when that came out, vendor search. Um, I think when I first learned it, it was just vendor search. There
Mm-hmm.
was no isolate at the beginning, and then at some point along the way, guys they were training, and they went, well, we always isolate the door when we vendor search because it makes sense. So like, well, let's add the I to it. You know what I mean? And I don't think they did anything wrong by doing that because it kind of it spells it out for you. You know what I mean? And all we did was add one more letter to the acronym. It's not like a 15 letter acronym where it's like we're confused. A vendor isolated search makes total sense to me. I got nothing against it. Obviously, I didn't coin the phrase, so I can't really say a whole lot about it. But it makes sense to me. If it's vendor isolated search and that's what we're doing, that's kind of the objective, a task that needs to be done to complete the objective. Then I don't see anything wrong with it. If there's pushback on it, I would like to hear have you heard any reason why guys are like, yeah, same. I can't think of anything. I can't think of anything other than firemen just hate acronyms. I don't know.
Yeah, it's funny because I've mentioned it to a couple of my boys back east and a couple guys out here, whatever. And the ones that were either from a different system that came out here, or the guys back east have been doing it for a while. I've heard them say stuff like that, like, "Come on, man, don't eye me," or whatever. And I'm like,
Yeah.
Why? Like, who? What's it matter? But like you said, it's not the alphabet of a freaking acronym now. It's just
Right.
it is. To me, it makes sense. And I don't know. I wear a helmet for a living. It's just
Sure.
when I have a brain fart, I like acronyms because it reminds me what I'm supposed to do, or at least when it's
Sure.
funny as an instructor when I'm teaching new kids and I'm telling them, I'm like, I kind of wish we use the acronym because it marches out in the beginning exactly what you have to do in order, but,
Yeah.
so when we start talking about searching in front of hose lines, so I'm a huge component of that because I honestly believe and I'm sure you agree with me, you're faster. Right. You
Yep.
can be more aggressive. You can get that search completed quicker. And I'll tell you what, Cody Miller from Memphis made a valid point. I never heard anybody say this before. So I'll march it out to you and
Okay.
see what you think, because as soon as he said it, I'm like, holy shit. I'm like, that makes sense to me. So for the guys that say, no, you need to bring a handline with you to search for firefighter safety, protection, whatever the case might be. And again, like you said, I agree with those things. It makes sense. But to me, I'm like, hey, there's a huge downside of taking that because now I'm as slow as an engine company. That's not the point, because if not, let's all be engine companies. Let's not have heavy rescues and ladder companies if we're all going to do the same job. That's, again, my personal opinion. But with that said, Cody Miller made a valid point. He goes, so what happens? Like, and all of us are firemen. We've all been on plenty of fucking jobs. You go inside, right? And no one helps hump hose. They just walk right by it, and these are his words, but I agree because we've all seen it 1,000 times. It's like, ooh, I want to touch that. That's hose, so
Sure.
they're not helping their brothers by grabbing just a stick or a circle and bringing it in with them and still going to work. But they're like, hey, what happens? The engine company finally finds the seat of the fire, right? The nozzleman opens up the bail, and then everyone just watches for a minute. Conditions go to garbage, and they keep going, and no one's moving. We bottleneck in hallways. We bottleneck in staircases, everything else. Or he goes, what are we doing when we're dragging that hose line through? He goes, we're searching without fucking water. And I'm like, holy shit, you're right. He's like, because you're searching, you don't have that bail open. He goes, so what's the difference between outside of the amount of water I have? There is no difference with searching with the can or hose line because I am only opening it if I absolutely have to. Because like you said, as soon as I put the fire out or start applying water, I reduce my visibility 1,000%. I decrease conditions for us at that point, trying to affect a rescue or at least get a good primary. And that's one of my heartaches when it comes down to, and I'm not sure if you guys do any sort of transitional attacks or reset fires. We went through a point in our region where it was like, hey man, like never walk past fire. And I understand the command officer's perspective on that. Hey, you're knocking down BTUs, you're making a more survivable space. But what guys forget is that you also decrease visibility dramatically, which hinders
Sure.
our search. So where do you feel on that one when it comes down to the can searches with or without water, and then really
Yeah.
that transitional attack or resetting the fire, hitting it hard from the yard, whatever the case might be, and then
Yeah.
going interior? How do you feel on the truck side on that?
Yeah. I mean, from a truck perspective, hitting it hard from the yard is not great for us. And we like to call it the coward cannon. You know,
Oh,
if you're
okay.
hitting it, if they hit it with the deck gun, you know, they use the coward cannon. You know, but sometimes it's got to be done. I mean, sometimes if we're transitioning, you know, we call it fast water where I'm at,
Mm-hmm.
and it happens pretty frequently. I mean, I would say if if it looks like we pull up and we got heavy fire throughout, you know, I mean, it is what it is. You're going to hit it
Mm-hmm.
with the deck gun. You're going to do what you got to do, and then we'll go in and we'll mop up afterwards, you know. But if we can, and it's just like, let's say we pull up to store in that frame and it's fire coming out of the half story on, you know, on the attic or something like that, let us give us a chance to go in there and take care of it from the inside out. Fire and the heat and smoke want to go out anyways. So as soon as you introduce that water from the outside, you're just introducing all that pressure and all that heat and smoke to stay inside the building.
Mm-hmm.
So if we can, I'm a big component of let's push the fire from the inside out. You know, it just makes the most sense to me. But it all situational dependent, like I said. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Okay, cool, good deal. So when it comes down to your area or your region, your department, whatever you want to answer this question,
Sure.
we already kind of marched out with your truck culture where the assignments are. Hey, and correct me if I misunderstood. Basically, first truck is side alpha, second truck is probably side Charlie, or at least they're operating on the Charlie side. Can you kind of march that out for why two ladders are beneficial on a working fire, or even fuck working fire, say the initial dispatch? Why is that important
Sure.
compared to a lot of guys will just do one ladder or one truck, whatever they call it in their system? So
Sure.
what's the advantage truck culture wise to having those two trucks there besides the manpower, obviously?
Sure. But yeah, the manpower, obviously. And then, so on our initial still alarm, we call it, we'll get 2 engines and 2 trucks and a chief right off the bat. So when we pull up, the engine is supposed to leave space to leave the front of the address for the truck, right? Just like I think anywhere else runs. So the first truck gets the address. If it's a courtyard where I work, like I said, we deal with a lot of courtyards. So we'll try and leave enough of the address, or if there's 2 mouths to a courtyard on like an E-type building or something like that, then we'll try and leave both mouths open so both trucks can have the mouths of the courtyard, you know. But on a regular like story and a frame or the 2 flat or something like that, the first truck gets the address, and then the second engine will back down on the first truck. So it'll be like engine, truck, engine. As far as positioning on the seaside, that's almost like a no-go for us all the time, just because in the way Chicago's set up, it's all of the alleys is where all of our power lines. So it's almost like, and you can stretch lines down the alley, no problem, but putting up a main in the alley, that's almost impossible. Sometimes the squad's able to get back there because they got a snorkel with like a cherry picker on it. They're able to kind of maneuver around that kind of stuff. But for us, for a truck, it's a no-go. So the second truck is definitely we'll assign to the seaside, like you just said. The truck will go around. They'll throw that second means of egress for the first truck to the roof. And then they'll go around to the seaside typically, and then soften the building, and then maybe start searches from there, depending. So same idea, I think. Just our truck then kind of just gets parked off to the side, and it just sits there like a toolbox if we're not able to put 2 trucks in the front. Yeah.
What about since we're talking truck culture, everything else, how about ground ladder culture? So where the system I came from, it was let's just say a prideful tradition that the ladder bed, no matter what size building it was, would be empty by the end of the call. And we took it to an extreme. And again, it was more of a tradition thing where at that point, there was a 28, a 35, a 20, an 18, and a 14 in the bed of that ladder. But we would throw a 35 to a single floor window completely at like 100 and whatever 60-degree angle just to empty the fucking bed. Like, again, moronic at the time, but it was more of a cultural thing. But for your region, how do you guys feel about the laddering windows and things along those lines? Is it a cultural thing, or is that like an afterthought, I should say?
Yeah, sure. So as far as like tradition of throwing all the ladders, I think we got to think very tactically here. And I think if we're just dumping every ladder off the bed for just because it's a tradition, I think we're kind of, it's kind of silly. You know what I mean? We're kind of wasting manpower to get all that done when there's other tasks on the fire ground that need to be done sooner. So I never really understood that. I know I see some departments, it's crazy. They got a ladder to every window, and that's great if that's how they run, but for us, it's really, there's like a handful of ladders that we need that need to go up. It's the main to the roof, two mains to the roof if we can get it. We got we call it the engineer's raise, which a lot of time either the engineer will throw or the first arriving truck, one of the guys that's assigned to like the rear, for example, they'll take the 20 or 24 and they'll throw it up to the A side of the building. And that's egress for our guys. That's for the first engine company going in. If they get jammed up or something like that on the second floor, whatever it is, we tell them, hey, you got a ladder to the A side. You know what I mean? Second floor window, for example. Mm-hmm. And then now they know, okay, that ladder is for us in case we get jammed up here. And that's kind of like the first ladder that's thrown besides the main on the first truck. The second truck, really, they're just expected to get that ladder up to the rear for the roof team coming off. Unfortunately, where I work, a lot of times we have to throw a 35 and even sometimes a banger. 35 is no problem, but when we start throwing the banger, it's like a 6-man operation. I don't know if you're familiar. I feel like a lot of places don't carry them, but it's like a 50-foot ladder. You got 2 stay poles. There's like multiple sections. It's like a 350-pound ladder. It's just a pain in the ass, So if we got to throw that to the rear because it's a 4-flat or something like that, and the 35 doesn't work, I mean, after we throw that banger, I don't know if we're going to grab 8 more ladders and throw them up unless they're absolutely needed. we get the ladders up that are necessary, that make sense, and then we move on from there to the next task. It's got a ladder for the guys on the roof, a ladder for the guys in the front that are going through the front on the A side, and then possibly another ladder or two to some windows on the opposite, maybe depending B or C side, depending on where we need to be at. And then after that, that's good. We're good right there. You know what I mean? We don't look at these buildings and go, we got 25 windows, we got to throw 25 ladders. We just don't operate like that. It might be a ladder per floor, 1 ladder to the second floor, 1 ladder to the third floor, 1 ladder to the third. That's kind of how we operate. So that's my opinion, and that's where I come from. That's how I work. That's how we work. So that's what makes sense to me. Mm-hmm. And it's up because it's up, And yep. I had this argument about a 20-foot ladder. I did a post that said throwing the 20. And somebody like harped on it, like, well, throwing the 20 is hard, and why would you throw the 20, and why would you do this? It's never the right angle, And I'm like, well, actually, where I work, it works a lot of the times. If I'm going to like a 3-flat or a 2-flat, well, I would say 99% of the time it has a guard unit apartment. So we're talking about to the second story window, we're talking like 18 feet on a 20-foot ladder. That's like the perfect pitch. So it just depends on the building. It depends on what ladders you need. It depends, obviously, there's a famous fire in Chicago, the Paxton Hotel fire, where they dumped the entire bed, but multiple trucks. But that's because you got multiple people hanging. So I'm not by any means saying like you don't throw all the ladders. We do what we should and what we can, and then we go from there.
No, yeah, dude, absolutely. So just to clarify for the audience, I understand what a banger ladder is. Yours is 50, you said. I've seen some that were slightly larger. The ones I've had personally a chance to throw was a 45, and they are all a pain in the ass. And like you said, it's like a dance. So for the guys out west that are listening to this, a banger to them is an attic ladder. So we're not talking the same thing. At least for verbiage wise. Yeah. So a banger ladder is a very, very, very tall ladder, ground ladder, not an attic ladder. Just to clarify that for everybody. So no, I love the fact where you guys are tactically throwing ladders. It's not a nuance where it's like, hey, we're not going to throw them, or we're always going to throw them. We're gonna need them, or we're gonna throw them as necessary. Is kind of what I'm picking up on you guys. All right, so we've been talking fire shit the entire time, but I don't want to miss the other great part of being truck culture, ladder culture. So for you guys, are the engines, or is it only the ladder companies doing extrication, heavy lifting? I heard you say a rescue squad or heavy rescue. So can you march out? So in the system I came from, we actually had a couple different cities or counties around us that didn't have full-fledged ladders. And it was weird because I say that. So out here, we call every truck a ladder. So I've been indoctrinated into this system long enough where now it's normal verbiage, but trucks, that's how I was raised. A truck was a ladder, and then either a wagon or an engine was an engine, whatever the case might be. But we had areas so our trucks were trucks, and if it was called a ladder in our system, it had everything except for extrication abilities. So
Okay.
how does it work in your system? Is every truck extricating? Is it only certain ones? Is it just a heavy rescue? Or do engines have like, do you guys have like rescue engines where they can do like door pops?
Sure. That's a great question. Trucks, tower ladders for us have no pumps on them. So I just want to clarify that real quick. They're true trucks. You know what I
Okay.
mean?
Yep.
But we do carry the abilities for extrication. I mean, we got everything from chains to e-hearse tools to Genesis combi tools to airlifting bags to struts, sawzalls. We got pretty much everything that you're going to need for an extrication right off the bat. So as far as engines go, engines are just engines. They carry water and hose. That's
Okay.
it. You know what I mean? But we do have some single engine companies where they were doing it for a little while. I don't know if some of the if they're still doing it, but for example, like if you're in a house where there's only an engine running out of there, because we have some houses like that, you know, and if you're only an engine running out of there, they had a Genesis combi tool,
Okay.
which I think most firemen know it's not great at at everything, but or at one thing, it's kind of just okay at a bunch of little things. But they would have that, and then if they would go on a run, you could start with that until a truck gets there.
Mm.
Um, but the way our response goes is, so if we have like a confirmed pin in, so we know we're going to be cutting somebody out. The engine's going obviously to provide suppression. You're going to get a truck. You're going to get ambulances, chiefs, all that stuff, and then you're also going to get the squad coming.
Okay.
So the squad for us is like a two-piece unit. It's a snorkel and then a toolbox. They run as like a 5A and like a 5. So when they come, we kind of have this little thing where we kind of jag each other off a little bit. It's like if we get a confirmed pin in and we start working, the squad's a little far from us. So we'll be like, we better get this car open. We better get this guy out before the squad gets here. You know what I mean? Because as soon as the squad gets there, it's like, oh man, you know, like we weren't able to do it on our own. It's a pride thing, you know. But on a confirmed pin in, you know, the squad gets there and we haven't got them out yet. Obviously, they got extra tools. They got everything. They got torches, different size airbags, spreaders that spread way wider than our e-hearse tools. They got all the different come-alongs and chains and all the stuff that you would possibly ever need for an extrication. They got it, you know, and they got the firemen with the skills to operate them. So sometimes they are a welcome sight, you know what I mean, when they come up. But that's kind of how we deal with the extrications and what we're carrying as far as that goes.
I got you. And for so confirm cut job, you're looking at a ladder and a squad every single time, basically, right?
Yeah,
First in
yeah.
ladder and then closest squad kind of deal.
Yeah, exactly. Closest squad. Yep.
Okay. I got you. And then obviously, like I said, we run the same. I mean, all of our ladders extricate, and then our squads are pretty much there for the heavy lifting, but they will also go to help. But that's kind of like, and again, same kind of deal. It kind of sucks if they have to help because it's like crap. We didn't have our tools just didn't have enough for this, you know. And it's I'd say 99.9% of the time it has nothing to do with the fireman. It has everything to do with the tools or that exact vehicle or that situation. But it's I like the fact that you guys do have that big rolling toolbox like we do because it's a little bit of everything. And I think that's probably the most fun when it comes down to all those extra things that you can do because all those extra tools that you guys carry. If you had a stent on that squad at all, how hard is it to get on those pieces?
No, I haven't done a stent on the squad. You know, I've looked at it maybe down the line or something like that. I'm having a good time at the tower ladder right now. We got a great crew. Everybody's kind of like a little bit younger. Everybody's having a lot of fun. I can't say that there's like really a day that I go into to my firehouse and I'm like, oh man, it sucks to be here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then we're kind of smack dab where we're located at. We're kind of smack dab in between like two of the busy battalions for fire duty in the area. So, I mean, to leave that area right now, I just don't see it in the foreseeable future. We get invited. The nice thing about tower ladders is anytime that there's a still in box, which means it went from the working fire. We do a still alarm, a working fire, and then a box alarm, and then a 211, 311, and so on. But anytime there's a box in the area from basically like up 35th Street down to 103rd Street to Lake Michigan, all the way to like Stewart, which is like, you know, we got half the south side that we cover. So, I mean, I don't see myself leaving anytime soon. These guys are too good and the work's too good. But as far as like getting on the squad, you got to be a diver. You got to have all your technical rescue certifications. You got to interview for a position when it comes available. And they are very selective. The squad by me is a very selective squad. Those guys are pretty squared away. They come from working companies. They're typically guys that have been around the block a little bit. So it is definitely if you ever or I ever or whoever goes to that squad, you can pretty much guarantee that they've been vetted. Yeah. So Great company, one of the best companies in the city. There's a lot of pride to be there for those guys. I know that. And we see them on all those box alarms that we go to too. And we work hand in hand with those guys all the time. And they're some of the best for sure.
Cool. And you bust their balls as much as you can, hopefully, because that's part
Yeah,
of
yeah, of
okay,
course.
good,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. White smoke chasers, you know,
Yeah,
like all that stuff.
good.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So let's so we kind of talked in the beginning about the Instagram page and everything else. So your personal opinion, I'll get you outside your region now since we've been beating that up pretty good. What do you
Okay.
feel like, again, your personal opinion, what do you feel like in the American fire service as a whole? So from, Baltimore to fucking San Francisco and everywhere in between, what do you feel like we're missing as a country right now, majority of us, when it comes down to truck culture?
Sure. So I think one of the big things that we're missing is firefighting. I think it's like you keep saying this word regional, and I want to harp on that a little bit because I think firefighting is so regional. It depends on like where you're at, the construction that you're dealing with, the water systems that you have, all those things. But when it really comes down to it, there's some basic tasks that need to get done, whether what's regional or not. We got to put water on the fire. We got to do some sort of ventilation. We got to overhaul. We got to search. And these are like just the basic tasks right off the bat that need to get done. And I think in the American Fire Service, I see that there's this big argument on like, well, we can't do this and we can't do that because of the region that we're in, or this is just not how we do it in the region that we're in. It's like, well, I think in the American Fire Service, the region doesn't matter if we're going to put water on the fire. It doesn't matter if we're going to ventilate, whether it's horizontally or vertically. It doesn't matter if like we're going to do a search or not. You know what I mean? Like all these things are happening regardless of your region. And I think that I'm very steadfast and everything just comes right back to the basics. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
I think everybody gets so like lost in like, there's all these different tricks and ways to do things. But really when it does come down to it, it's really just the basics. Can you search? Can you do a good lead out? Can you get water on the fire? Can you ventilate? And I think there's a big miss on that in the fire service right now. And I would like to try and get that out there. And I know other guys too that are out there preaching the same thing, saying that like it really is, there's a beauty in the basics and when it really comes down to it, it doesn't matter where you're at regionally. There's the tasks that need to get done. And if we can just focus on that, if we can focus at being just good firemen when it comes to doing lead outs, when it comes to swinging a tool, all those things, I think we could really make the American Fire Service a lot better.
All right. So what would be your key to success then? You have 15 years on the job. That brand new guy coming in, right? You haven't had a chance to teach him, right? So he's assigned to your truck or even maybe the same station, whatever. What would the keys be to success for him, in your opinion, for the ladder culture side? What would you give him? Like, hey man, like if I could do this all over on day one, this is kind of how it would start, or this is what I would study, this is what I would learn. What's your opinion on that, brother?
Sure. So kind of going back to the beginning, you explained some stuff of like the why, giving the guys the why. And I think there's a big push for that. And I think when I first started, it was a lot different, even though it was only 15 years ago. But I mean, you look at guys when people would just say like, this is just how we do it. And this is just because, you know what I mean? And they don't give you a why, but I think everybody's hungry for the why right now. I think especially the new firemen coming on, they're hungry for the why. And if you can give them the why and it's justified to them, they're all in, you know what I mean? So if I had a new guy come in and I'm going to show him like this or show him that, and this is how we do this and that, I'll give him a why. I do that with the candidates right now where I teach. I give them the why, and I always try and do that because if I can justify what I'm doing to not only myself and I believe it, and I can sell it back to them, and I can tell them this is why we're doing it this way, and there's a buy-in in that. I think there's a huge buy-in in that. It gives you credibility too, because if I just tell you, oh, this is just how we chop with an axe, and they're like, if they chop it completely different, I'll be like, well, here's the why, because we don't want the guy behind us, because we want to make sure we're burying just the top part of our bit of our axe, and when we chop, all those things, you give them the reason why. I think it sets these guys up for much more success going down the line.
I can't agree. My train of thought's the same as yours. Like I'd
Yeah.
rather give them the why for everything. That way they understand, and it's not just, hey, one individual instructor Smith or whatever saying, hey man, you do it this way because this is the way I taught you, or like you said, it because we've always done it this way, and that person might not even know why. It's just because they were taught that 20 years ago, and now they're teaching someone else the same thing that they were taught, which I believe the American Fire Service has done for a long time, and we're transitioning out of that because of all the new information we have, all the new
Right.
technology. The building construction is a little bit different, but the fuel load is dramatically different. That's probably the
Sure.
biggest thing we run into compared to
Hmm.
like the legacy firemen. And, I know your area is way older than my area when it comes down to building construction, but the fire load is more dangerous than the building,
Yeah.
my opinion, because that's
Yeah.
what,
No, you're right.
that's what kills us the most. And I mean, like my ex-father-in-law, he was an old salty dog. I mean, it was back in the heydays of the 70s in
Sure.
Bridgeport, Connecticut. So, I mean, shitty area.
Uh-huh.
And they would, I mean, like, I remember when I got on the job in five was like, you fucking pussies, right? We'd
Yeah.
go through
Right.
3 to 4
Right.
bottles. You're at one bottle and the house is on the ground or whatever.
Right.
I'm like, you don't understand. I'm like, the fires are
Yeah.
different. He's like, bullshit, fires, fire, like it's just,
Yeah. Right.
and some guys, you just can't change their mind. It's like, hey, listen, I understand 1,000 degrees is 1,000 degrees is 1,000 degrees. The fact is,
Yeah.
we reach 1,000 degrees sometimes prior to arrival because of our fuel
100%.
loads, right? Or as soon as we open that door and feed the fire, we're instantly flashover conditions. So it
Sure.
is different. So shame on us if we're fighting fires today the same way we did 20, 30 years ago, because if we are,
Hmm.
we're wrong, because
Hmm.
and that's probably how we hurt and kill most of our guys, unfortunately. I don't know. Again,
Hmm.
my personal opinion, but without really getting on a soapbox about that, we've been yelling about truck culture and everything else for about an hour, right? So before
Right.
we kind of transition into wrapping up, is there anything you want to leave the audience with when it comes down to just truck culture, let's say search culture, ground ladder, whatever, the stage is yours, brother. What do you want to preach to the audience to just make them better firemen in the future, the guys that are still listening?
Sure. I mean, going back again to the basics, you know what I mean? If there's one thing that you could really harp on for yourself as a fireman, I can't say enough for anybody that's listening, is just focusing on your basics. If you can get really good at that, that is your groundwork for being a fireman. And if you can lay good groundwork now, if you have good groundwork now, that's what's going to make you not just a good fireman, but like an excellent fireman. Um, any other thing I would say is you're going to learn a lot of different things from a lot of different people. And this is, I'm sure a lot of people know this that are listening to this podcast because, they're seasoned guys. But, I'll say it anyways, because it's one of the things I always say to the candidates, like week one, and you're going to learn a lot of different things from a lot of different people. You're going to get people from all kinds of different departments, walks of life, ways of doing things. What everybody teaches you isn't necessarily ironclad. You know what I mean? I always say take a bunch of different people's experiences and then form your own opinion about it. What one guy's doing might not necessarily be wrong, and what the one guy that you think is doing everything right might not necessarily be right. It might be a blend of the two. So don't take everybody's word as it's ironclad. Don't think that like because this guy does it this way that's the only way to do it. Form your own opinion. You know what I mean? Be observant. Take a look around and see who's doing what. You know what I mean? Oftentimes it's not the guy that's yelling and saying like, this is how we do it. It's the guy that's laid back and it's the guy that's telling you, hey, take a look at what you're doing. You know what I mean? He's quiet, but confident in his skills. That's the guy that you're going to want to gravitate to. That's the guy that's probably has a little bit of knowledge and skills. That's a senior guy that can show you rather than just tell you about it. Form your own opinion, gather as much information as you can and then go from there. And then you just focus on the basics. That's what I would say.
I love it. And it's almost the way I'm receiving this, and please tell me if I'm taking it the wrong way, but I like to do basically what you're saying is, hey, Joey says do it this way, Billy says do it this way, Bobby says to do it this way. I take all three, kind of merge them and make something that works the best for me. Like that's how I like it. And I tell the brand new guys the same thing. It's like, hey, listen, man, like if you don't like the way I do it, that's okay. This works really well for what I do.
For me, right?
For
exactly.
me, I've also showed you 10 other ways. I don't care which way you do it. I just want you to do it effectively and efficiently. That's it. So if your plan A works 99% of the time, you should default to plan A every time, where I'm defaulting to plan D, whatever. My plan A is just different. So I love that you're looking at it like that. And I feel like if we could capture that in the American Fire Service more and stop eating our own as much, because you see it on Instagram all the time too. I'll post a fucking 40-second forcible entry video, and someone has to chime in something stupid like, it's actually not a single tool because whatever. And it's just like, it's just talking out their ass. It's just, and I don't know why firemen do it more than anybody else, because
they do.
I don't look at anything else on Instagram, like a cooking thing or whatever. And so a chef chimes in, that technique's wrong, like blah, 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 whatever.
Right.
But firemen
Right.
do it all the time. Dude, do you have any idea why we freaking just eat our own as much as we do?
Man,
I don't get it.
man, that's a great question. Real quick, the uh, as far as like looking at how other people do things, I even tell a guy sometimes like, hey, sometimes you're going to learn something that you know is wrong, right? We all come across it, right? You learn from an instructor and you're like, you take a look at him, you're like, I don't know about that. You know what I mean? And I always tell the candidates because that's just that's my wheelhouse. You know what I mean? But I tell them like, hey, if somebody's teaching you something wrong and you know it's wrong, just keep your mouth shut. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? But if you know it's wrong, there's something that can be learned from that too. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
everything's a learning experience here. And if they're teaching you something wrong, you know, just just keep your mouth shut, learn it the wrong way. You know what I mean? But don't do it the wrong way. That'll be an example or an opinion for you to form later where it's like, well, I saw what not to do, so I'm going to do something else. You know what I mean? I think there's some value in that for sure. And then as far as eating ourselves, I don't understand that. That's you know, I see the same thing on Instagram, like you said. One of my recent posts, I had something on there is a kind of an antiquated way of like a RIT survival tool. And I don't know if you saw the post, but it was like, I had guys chiming in like, oh, maybe that was good in the 40s. This
Mm.
is if you're doing this, that's wrong or whatever. And I said, I very blatantly said it in the post. I'm like, I do not recommend this. This is this is a last ditch survival effort tool. You know what I mean? Like and that's okay that's how I look at it and that's how I run with it. You know, there are situations where I've been in where it's like this tool is a good thing for me. You know what I mean? And that's okay if it's not for you. But there's a lot of opinions out there where guys just they want to bash stuff. You know, the big thing is how we operate where I work is a lot different than a lot of other places. You know, I see guys harp even on videos that come out of my area. Guys will say all kinds of stuff. I see it because we got videos that come on, not necessarily from me, but from my area, that go viral and stuff like that. And I'll read the comments sometimes just for fun, you know, and I'll read the comments and it'll be like, why are they doing it like this? Why did they have that tool? Why are they not wearing this? Why? And it's like, most of the time you're looking at these videos and I'm like, these are some of the most badass firemen that you've ever seen. You know what I mean? But you got an opinion about it. Well, if it's not your department, like maybe you just keep your opinion to yourself. You know what I mean? Because you don't know these guys are seasoned, well respected, trained firemen, and they're not just trained; they got the experience too. You know, so I don't understand. I don't understand. I don't think I'll ever understand why we want to eat our own. We should be more inquisitive than anything. We should be asking questions rather than pointing fingers. So hopefully guys will listen to that or listen to us and take something out of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's just, it drives me crazy. And I'm mature enough now, finally, in my mid 40s, and it took me a long time to get there to not fire back because I
Sure.
used to
Yeah.
be like, it would just make my blood boil. But I mean, there was even an example just extremely recently. The department I work for, they had posted from our PIO, right? From our department, it was
Sure.
just a good job. And it was just the initial company doing a quick stretch. They have a Minuteman, they throw it off their shoulder, they V split out, and they go running into the building. And I mean, the
Hmm.
video is not even 20 seconds. It's two firemen deploying hose rapidly and
Yeah.
literally running inside a building. And the comments were horrible. They're like,
Sure.
they look panicked. Why are they
Yeah.
running? And
Yeah. Right.
I'm like going, and other guys are like, did you read the comments? I'm like, no. And they're like, you should. I'm like, no, I really don't want to.
Yeah.
And they're
Right.
like, well, what? You know, they're like, well, boo, boo, boo. I'm like, yeah, what do you do? It pissed you off, right? He's like, yeah, it pisses me off, you know? And they're firing back like, okay, well, if it's your family, we're not going to run next time. Like, how do you guys feel about that? But it's like, even the stupidest things have just shown guys being aggressive, doing all the right stuff, and guys still dog. And it's just like, it's a keyboard warrior. It's a day and age. It's
100%.
just, I hope that in the next 10 years, you know, again, if I could snap my fingers, that's what I would get rid of is the fucking egos and the eating our own in
Right.
the American Fire Service, because I believe, again, my personal opinion, that's what holds us back as a country the most,
I
because
agree.
because of that. Like, you're from the Chicago region, I'm from the freaking Phoenix region, and we could
Hmm.
absolutely butt heads on stuff, but why would we? Like, hey, I
Right.
want to learn something from you, you can learn something from me, and we could be fucking just
Absolutely.
better firemen. Like, why is that
Absolutely.
such a big thing? You know, and if guess
That's
what,
great.
you do something that doesn't work here, I try and be like, man, I love it. It just doesn't work in our area. No harm, no foul.
100%.
Yeah,
I wish.
I don't have to use what you teach me. You don't have to
Right.
use what I teach you. It's just
Right.
another option.
I wish more guys had that mindset. You know what I mean? That's why I like talking to guys like you or anybody else in the fire service that's willing to have a conversation, you know, rather than just pointing fingers, because that would 100% help the American Fire Service, like you said, if we could just talk and have a conversation about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think we're on the right track.
All right, brother. Well, listen, we kind of talked on it a little bit, but let's just expand out real fast. So we in
Okay.
the beginning we did it, but so the question for you, and guys love this part. So you're from the Chicago region, South Side, so you're busy. We talked initially, so that initial, let's say that initial house fire. So 2.5 stories, so it doesn't matter, right? But your bread and butter, no one's got goosebumps, no one's hair standing up. You guys are, this is a one-line kick-ass fire, in and out, no big deal. How do you guys run it? What's the initial assignment? I'm pretty sure you kind of started with that still assignment, but if you can kind of march out, you guys IC driven? Is it SOP driven tactics? How does that kind of work for you and your city, brother?
Yeah, so it's definitely SOP driven. The first engine, second engine, third engine, fourth engine, depending on what it is, all has a task as soon as they show up. You know what I mean? So it's very spelled out. And then the guys, for the most part, you know, if you're riding with experienced guys, they know exactly where to place themselves and how to get position at the fire ground. So we got levels of alarms, like we got the still alarm, the working fire, the box alarm, the 211, 311, and so on and so forth, you know, and every time we elevate the alarm, we're getting additional ambulances, additional trucks, squads, all that stuff. So no goosebumps like right out the door. You know, we get the call for the still alarm. You know, we're getting 2 engines, 2 trucks, and a chief going. And then if we get there and it's nothing, it's nothing. If we get there and the officer reports we got a fire, then we go to the working fire, and that gives us additional companies like the squad coming in, RIT, the truck, a RIT ambulance, all those things start coming. And then every time we elevate the alarm, we're talking about an additional engine and a truck, and then ambulances coming to backfill that RIT ambulance and all those different things. So then that's kind of just elevates from there. Yeah.
Does your first in officer run command, or does the battalion take it every single time?
So that's a great question. So a lot of times, if the chief's behind or the chief's behind the first engine or truck, you get the initial report from the engine, and then usually you just get a truck report for the first truck. They'll just call what side of the building they're on, and then when it goes from there, the first in truck and engine officer, they kind of just work hand in hand on managing the scene. Like I said, we're lucky enough to have such good manpower, and we got good chiefs nearby that they're there within minutes. You know what I mean? So when they get there, they do assume the role of IC as soon as they report there. So they'll report. They'll give an update to the alarm office. They'll let them know, like, hey, this is what we got. Give me this, or we're good right now where we're at. And then they'll start assigning tasks if they aren't already in motion. But none of the companies are hanging back and then just waiting, you know, currently for assignments to happen or anything like that. We pull up and the guys go to work. Yeah.
Dude, I love that system, and I wish we had it here. I came from an SOP driven system, and now we're an IC driven system. And my biggest heartache is no matter what happens, if I'm not the first in officer, even though I know exactly what has to happen, I actually have to wait officially until someone does this and says, you know, truck one, engine one, I need you to do X, Y, Z. Even though
Sure.
we already knew that we had to do that, that's exactly what we're going to do. That's why I always preferences with that, hey, that 95% bread and butter house fire where we all feel comfortable. So it's a huge component for me because I believe there's probably cuts down a lot of radio traffic for you guys using the SOP driven system, right?
Yeah, it does until you get, you know, 5, 6 companies and then like 3 or 4 chiefs on scene, and then you can't get a message across at all, you know?
Okay.
That's one of the toughest things, you know, like on the roof, you're trying to get a roof report down and you can't do it, you know?
Yeah, because everyone's yapping. It's like, shut the fuck up for 2 seconds.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
I'm the priority right now. I'm above the fire. You know, I just need to tell you something.
Yeah, right.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So we did that. We talked truck culture the entire time. So just real briefly, obvious working fire, same question. Is that engine, are you guys going in on tank water majority of the time, or are you pretty much laying a supply line on that? Again, they have a header. They know it's working. Are they going to drop a supply, or is that a second in engine job for you guys?
Yeah. So the first in engine, they're supposed to secure their own water supply 100%. So when they pull up, they'll start on tank water. And then while that tank water is going, they'll be laying into a hydrant, whether that's reverse or forward, whatever it is. They typically try and grab a hydrant ahead. Our hydrants are 300 feet apart in the residential areas. So kind of like no matter where you're at on the block, you should be able to hit pretty easily.
Yeah, that's close.
Yeah, and then we have, again, we're blessed with 5 guys on the company, so even on the engines, so we have a designated hydrant guy too. So the hydrant guy and the engineer, they'll work hand in hand to get that water supply established. And then when the second engine shows up, their job is to establish their own water supply. So the idea is that if for some reason that hydrant goes bad or the first engine loses water, the second engine's right there ready to go off their own hydrant. And then depending, like in the wintertime operations when we're running, we'll send if they're having water issues or having hydrant cap problems or they got a frozen hydrant, whatever it might be, we might send one guy from the truck, like the rear guy, he might go to help the engine make a hydrant. Or the second engine, when they get in, their assignment will be help the first engine establish a positive water supply. And that's kind of how we run that.
Cool. No, good deal. Is there anything you want to leave the audience with, just how you guys run that bread and butter house fire until we kind of transition into the end of the episode and the questions for the end of the season, brother?
No, I think that's it as far as the house fire goes. It's pretty bread and butter, like I just explained it. I mean, we're not doing anything crazy. You know what I mean?
No, and dude, I love it. I love the fact that your staffing is so fucking thick, man. Like, it's just, we talked about like beating fires out with manpower. You guys are legit doing it with, like, especially you're running like New York City staffing on your freaking apparatus, which is awesome.
We make that joke sometimes. If the fire doesn't go out, we'll just throw more guys at it. You know
yeah, I mean? There's like literally like we're gonna beat in submission with manpower, and
right, yeah.
I hate to say that always works eventually. I mean,
it does.
Yeah, you might go down to the foundation eventually too, but it won't go out. But yeah, just keep throwing more guys at it. Eventually, you guys will figure it out.
It definitely helps. You know, I worked in the suburbs, like I told you, and working in the suburbs, you had to get good at all the tasks. You know what I mean? Because that was it. It's all you got. You might show up with 2 or 3 guys right off the bat, and then that's it. And then the next company that comes might only have 2. So you got 5 guys on a working fire for the first 15 minutes. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of tasks that need to get done, which harps right back into the basics that I was talking about. You know what I mean?
Do you guys use any mutual aid or automatic aid companies in your system at all in the city?
So that's a great question too. The answer is no. You know what I mean? It's kind of a weird thing. Like we don't really send out, and we don't ask anybody to come. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
So it's just I don't know if it's like just a pride and tradition thing. We're surrounded by companies all over the place, so you know we rarely have to do that. There are some companies up north that like kind of border the suburbs where they might kind of make it in or not. When I worked on the far south side on an engine, we would run in sometimes into one of it was a town called Riverdale, kind of like a impoverished area, and they get fires over there. And every once in a while, we would get toned out to a fire over there. We'd show up, and then it would be like, all right, and they'd turn us around and we go home. You know what I mean? So it's kind of odd how that works, but that's just how it works over here.
Okay, yeah, I think a lot of departments are pretty similar to that. So.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into the why. We talked about the why when we were talking about instructing and then the new generation of firemen that we're trying to get up to speed and transition in the American Fire Service. But this why is for you. So the why, everyone's got different reasons. So why did you decide to become a fireman? Is that something that you came out the womb and this is something you always wanted to do, or you kind of fell into later in life? If you kind of march out, we did talk your prior military. So just go across that, my brother.
Sure. Yeah, I made the transition in real quick. Both my stepdad at the time and my mom were both in the fire service. So I got kind of like in the introduction into it young. They worked as like a paid on call and volunteer in a suburb of Chicago. So I kind of been exposed to it a little bit here and there. You know what I mean? I wouldn't say I was like a firehouse latchkey kid by any means. I didn't hang out there all the time, but I had been around enough to like know what's what, you know. So when I turned, 18, I went off to the military. I did a deployment. I came back and I was like, well, what am I going to do now? You know what I mean? I didn't really have a plan. I just had a bunch of money saved in the bank, you know, and then I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. You know what I mean? So I moved back to the city. I moved into Chicago proper, and I was kind of like back and forth on what I was going to do. I kind of, there was a volunteer department called Knollwood. It was kind of like the small one firehouse, one department, with an engine, a truck, a squad, no EMS, just fire only. But they bordered this area, North Chicago and Waukegan, and it was like they saw some fire duty over there, you know what I mean? And what would happen is they would get fires over there, and we would be the first truck a lot of times to their area. So I had met with somebody over there, and I kind of got in to the fire service by just kind of walking up and showing up one day and be like, hey, like, you guys taking applications or whatever. And then I was fortunate enough that I got in. I did a live-in program there for a while where I lived in the firehouse for like a year. The only caveat was you had to make the runs if you were living there. You know what I mean? So I did that. I learned from some of the best. Those guys were, you know, I hear guys knock non-professional firefighters sometimes, but honestly, some of the best firemen I ever met is those guys. You know, they really got a love for the job and some great skills. So I spent a little bit of time there, and then I transitioned to another department north of there. Got hired as like a part-time and on a contract that they had up there, non-professional fire department. And then shortly after that, then I got the call for the city job, and I took the city job, and it transitioned right into that. And I would say that because I got to work in those areas prior to that, I had built myself a good skill set because I had to accomplish those tasks. So by the time I got to the city, it was like, I kind of knew what I had to do. And one of the biggest pieces of advice is, and I've seen guys do it before, but when I just got this question, I transitioned from a small department to a big department. I told him, I said, when you get there, you don't know shit. You know what I mean? Like, nobody wants to hear your experience or what you've done or what you can do. Everything will talk to your work ethic. You know what I mean? And I tried to coin that and live by that. I don't talk a big game. I don't tell anybody I can do this or I can do that or where I came from. I don't say none of that. You get there, you show everybody what you're about. You show them how you work. You show them what your work ethic is and your skills are, and that'll speak enough for you. You know what I mean? So, I got there, and then the rest is kind of history. I'm here now, and I don't have plans to go anywhere. This is it for the rest of the career, and then hopefully have a long, healthy career, and then sail off into the sunset.
Hell yeah, man. Board shorts and longboards. That's why I say all the time that's my
Yeah,
retirement plan.
right.
Somewhere Carolina is something like that. It's funny, when I was living back east, it was always Cali. I'd never been out here, and then realized there's no way I would ever want to live out here or be able to afford it.
Yeah,
So I'm reverting back to Carolinas or somewhere on the
love
beach.
it,
But yeah.
love it.
But all right, so we got the why, right? So your parents were involved, military, and then it was just like, hey, man, this is the best thing since sliced bread. So we got that. What about traditions? So we are wholeheartedly trying to hold on to the traditions of the American Fire Service that we do have.
Yeah,
We've lost a lot that I wish we haven't just because of society. But what is your favorite? It doesn't even have to be your department, just in the American Fire Service. What's your favorite American Fire Service tradition? But more importantly, why? Why do you love it so much?
sure. One of my favorites is so, like I said, I transitioned from the military to the fire service, and I think why I loved it so much and it worked so well for me was the camaraderie of it. You know what I mean? You went from serving with these guys nonstop in these hairy situations, then all of a sudden I'm in the fire service now, and I'm like, this is a good transition. This is very similar. You know what I mean? I could get behind this. So the camaraderie that's built in the firehouse, that I mean, one of the biggest things I think is cooking together. You know what I mean? So we have a food club. We put in our $25 every morning. Everybody gets in the food club. And then we have a cook. And that cook, he does nothing but cook and go to fires. That's it. He doesn't have to do anything else. And when we're cooking, everybody's in the kitchen. The music's going. We got stuff going on. You know what I mean? Our last shift, we did homemade pizza night. And that it's everybody's in the kitchen rolling out pizza dough. You know what I mean? And while we're doing that, everybody's talking shit. We're talking about like what we're gonna do tomorrow. We're talking about, it's just like this one big like family thing where it's just a lot of camaraderie going on. So I feel bad for the departments where you're not cooking together, where you're not breaking bread together. If you're not doing that, I mean, that's probably one of the biggest spots. The kitchen table, busting each other's balls, making a meal together. That's probably my favorite tradition, and one of the biggest traditions if you're not doing it, to start it or keep it alive.
Yeah, I love it. And I saw your post. It said like Saturday night, freaking homemade pizza night or whatever. And it was cool because
That's right.
you got your huge kitchen table. And it's just covered in flour and there's dough,
Yeah.
like
Yeah, right.
that's what, dude, that's what I'm talking about. Like, yeah, like everyone get their hands in the mix and start
Right.
making. And if you absolutely suck, you can 100% do a ton of dishes. If you can't cook at
Yeah.
all. So
Oh,
you
yeah.
can,
100%. Yeah. And
yeah. So
yeah, not everybody's good at it. Some guys do suck. You know what I mean?
yeah, and that's okay. Listen, I like my chicken cooked always. There is no such thing
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
medium.
Yeah. Right.
Medium. If you
Yeah.
ask me how I like my chicken cooked,
Yeah.
I'm gonna say, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
I'm cooking
Yeah.
dinner tonight, right?
Yeah. Right.
You're gonna do the dishes, so it's okay. But
100%.
oh my god, dude, I love it. Yeah, and the kitchen, the breaking bread, I can wholeheartedly agree with you. The only other thing I think is better than that is after that meal, maybe stogies, outside with the
Oh,
boys,
you're speaking my language.
or after a job, even better. But
Oh, yeah.
it's some of the best things ever. And again, I agree with you. I feel bad. We have a couple crews that for some reason just don't cook together, and you could tell the difference between that crew and the one that does on how tightly knit they are and how much they get along, and honestly how well they perform half the time, because those guys
you're
just
right.
they know each other better. So of course you work better when you know each other. But dude, I love it.
100%.
So let's kind of go the opposite thing. So if we could change something in the American Fire Service, it's my favorite question. Literally snap your fingers. So it's like winning the lottery. Zero sweat equity, no like instant gratification. You could change something. So that's insert, delete, whatever it is. What would it be in the American Fire Service, but more importantly, why? Why would you change,
Yeah.
delete, insert, whatever this is?
Yeah. So that's a question when you prompt, we had that little blue room conversation before we started. I think, we talked a little bit about, I'm thinking about this whole episode, but the eating each other, you know what I mean? And I think the fact that we're able to just go out there, the internet makes it so easy for us to just talk shit about each other. You know what I mean? And it's one thing to talk shit. If I'm your buddy, we could bust each other's balls, no problem. You know what I mean? But if I don't know you and you don't know me and you want to talk shit or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, I think it's poor form. You know what I mean? So I think if I could change one thing, I would say like get everybody as a whole back on the same page. And I see all these conferences and stuff going up all over the place, especially over the past like handful of years. There's a conference everywhere that you can go to, and whether they're good, bad, or indifferent, whatever, if you're going there, you're probably in the like-minded mindset. You know what I mean? You're here to get better. You're here because you want to build those traditions or keep those traditions alive of like us learning and getting better with each other. And I think by talking shit to each other and bad mouthing each other, we ain't doing each other any favors. You know what I mean? It's not helping the American Fire Service. It doesn't bring us together any stronger. It doesn't build anything. All it is just you talking shit behind a keyboard. You know what I mean? So if we wanted, if we could change something tomorrow, I'd be like, hey, like let's all get on the same page here and let's see how we can make this fire service better.
Yep. I could echo every single word you just said. I absolutely agree with you, dude. It's like, that is the thing that drives me the craziest. And one of my almost like personal missions, career goals is to make sure that everyone that I get a chance to influence, either being assigned to the training academy right now, which I am, which is great. That's exactly where I want to be right this minute because I can affect the most change in our region. But I think if you got guys like us that continuously preach, hey, let's just get better, stronger, faster, smarter together. I think through attrition, hopefully, as long as we keep harboring these new guys coming in, this same kind of mindset that we have, I'm hoping in 20 years from now, when someone comes in, a snot-nosed kid, and they say something stupid, that 20, 30 years senior guys going, shut the fuck up, dude. You don't know anything. You know, like, and you can learn something from this, right? Keep your mouth shut, learn as much as you can. And hopefully, like I said, through attrition and guys like us trying to preach, hey, this is how it should be, I hope it catches on. I feel like it already is. I just hope it continues.
Same.
Is really where I'm at right now.
I agree. Yeah, and that's, I think, one of the biggest reasons I teach is because I think that's where you can have the most positive influence and change. Because if you can get to these guys before they start their 30-year careers and you can set the groundwork and lay it right now, I mean, hopefully that'll carry on with them throughout their careers. And, you know, you see the fruits of your labor down the road, you know what I mean? And that's one of the biggest things I see is like teaching for me is just having some sort of positive influence where these guys get something out of it. It keeps the traditions alive that are dying off so quickly. And then showing these guys through those experiences and through those times, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I love it, man. All right, dude. Well, listen, thank you for taking time on your holiday Monday right here, sitting down, just
same.
rapping, freaking talking the God's work, if you call me. Like we always,
right.
I call us the freaking Engines Angels, man, because you look up and there we are, right? Got a big old gaping hole. You're very welcome. All right, we'll see you guys interior in a minute.
The engines call us engine helpers.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Just pull my line for me, bro. Shut the fuck up. Do your job. I'll find the seal of fire for you, you slow fuck, right? You know? So,
right. Yeah.
But dude, I love it. So the banter between the companies is exactly what this job's about, man. And guys like you that are out there just preaching the good word. And trust me, I know how much money you make on Instagram, 0 fucking pennies, right? So
that's it.
you're doing it just like me. You're doing it because you just want the culture and the job to get better. And like we all say it, and guys like us are doing it. Like we're trying to leave it better than we found it. And that's my only goal. I know guys like you are the same way, and that's the only reason you're on there posting all this stuff. So dude, kudos. Thank you for helping the American Fire Service get better. But more importantly, from one truckie to another, thank you for putting the truck work and the ladder work in the limelight, because I thoroughly believe it needs to be, because it's always about the engine company, fast water, flow pass, everything else. People always neglect the most important guys and that's the specialty pieces, the ladder companies, the heavies, everything else. So dude, thanks for keep spreading it. Again, thank you for your time. Is there anything you want to leave the audience with before we sign off, my brother?
Yeah, I just want to say thanks to you. Thanks for having me on. It's been a pleasure talking with you. I'm glad to hear that we're on the same mindset. Again, it's Labor Day, so you know we're here because we work for labor unions, and we're very fortunate to be where we're at. So thanks again for having me. That's why shout out to my wife, obviously. My wife, my kids. I got 3 kids. They're the best. I wouldn't be able to do this podcast right now if she didn't take the kids and, get them out of the house. It would just be crazy in here. So obviously, thanks to them. Any mentors that I've had along the way, you know who you are. And then, of course, my tower company that I work with, those guys are the best. So, amen, brother. I appreciate you having me on.
Cool. No, thank you, my brother. And if I ever make my way over to your edge of the woods, I'm 100% going to give you a holler.
Yeah, absolutely.
Be able to check out your house, hopefully. And then same offer goes for you. Like I said, I'm not in the field right now. I'm signed to the academy for the next 2 years, but dude, come around, fucking guest instructor, brother, whenever you want.
For sure.
Just hit me up,
it.
dude. All right, dude. Well, listen, thank you again for your time. Everyone that made it this far, thank you. And we'll catch you guys in another 2 weeks.
All right.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. We'll be back in another 2 weeks. Remember to like, share, review if you can. Helps drive traffic to our podcast. Remember, let's leave our ego out of the fire service. It's amazing what we can accomplish when no one's looking for credit. Much love. Let's stop eating our own and become better firemen. Catch you next time.